keeping with the theme of recruiting, Jordan, obviously we mentioned we got a recruiting class in 2026 coming in right now that is securely within the top 5. We talked about the addition of Contavious Anderson and what he means to this 2026 class. But let's be honest, the race is not over, right? We still have to continue to grind it out and keep these guys that are verbally committed satisfied. But not only that, we still got a couple irons in the fire, if you will, Jordan. We still got a couple big names out there that Clemson is hunting to add to this 2026 recruiting cycle. We got the big official visit weekend coming up here soon. And let us know what is new in the world of Clemson football and as far as the 2026 recruiting class goes. Who are the big fishes out there? Who are we waiting on? What should Clemson fans be paying attention to as we get closer and closer to this official visit weekend?
Yeah, a couple of big announcements came out, this week for Clemson. We've talked about one of these guys quite a bit, but another one, it kind of moved off of a little bit in terms of just kind of him being a name to watch. But I'll start with the one that everybody's probably thinking about. Number 1 overall linebacker in the 2026 class, Tyler Atkinson, announced that he will be taking his official visit to Clemson on May 30th. This is the first official visit that he's scheduled. That is pretty significant, and kind of abnormal considering how close we are to official visit weekend, that he's only just now making this announcement. But so far, he's the only Clemson is the only official visit that he has announced. Now, they won't be the only one. I guarantee that. But we talked about this when the Elite Retreat happened, that Tyler Atkinson was legitimately him and his family were legitimately impressed by Clemson. He really went from a guy that you're like, okay, yeah, he's saying nice things about Clemson, but I with the other players in this recruitment, I don't think that we're really going to have a seat at the table. I have plenty of reason to believe that is far from the case. I think Clemson is a legitimate contender for Tyler Atkinson at this point. And this is a big deal. And it should also be noted that linebacker Caleb Gordon, who we've talked about a little bit as the other main linebacker target, will not be visiting Clemson. And I will tell you that is not because that is not bad news for Clemson. I'll say that Clemson was not upset about that. And I think that should tell you about how they feel about their chances with Tyler Atkinson. So I think this is a massive development. It doesn't. I'm not saying that he's a lock. I'm not saying that Clemson is even should be considered the favorite.
Right.
But I think Clemson has put themselves in a legitimate chance especially when it comes to the official visit weekend. You never know what can happen. I mean, you come and think about where like Sammy Brown's recruitment like 2 cycles ago. The massive or the main sentiment going into official visit season was, man, he's saying nice things about Clemson. He would be a great fit at Clemson, but Georgia. He's been to Georgia.
Yeah.
They're coming to and going
all
on
the
fishing.
talk was how many times he had been to Georgia. That's all you heard about.
And like it's like, oh man, it's good, but Clemson just doesn't have the cachet to win those types of recruiting battles against Georgia anymore.
Yeah.
But you come to that official visit weekend, and obviously everything flipped. And honestly, it was never as much Georgia as people seem to believe. Like Sammy Brown was was high on Clemson through the entire process, and Clemson was the favorite even before the official visit weekend. Obviously he held that close to his cards, close to the vest.
Yeah.
So I say all that to say that you don't really know until these kids get on campus, and you gotta trust this staff of all staffs to be able to knock it out of the park when it comes to official visit weekend. There we go, Clemson baseball team scored, took the lead.
Yeah.
But that is why I want to make it clear that I think that Tyler Atkinson is not only is he a phenomenal prospect, like one of the best linebacker prospects that we've seen in a couple of probably in a few cycles. I think Clemson is in a legitimate chance, and they'll have a legitimate chance to get him when it's all said and done. But you never know, and that's why I am excited about this news, but also got to reel it in a little bit too. So, because yes, there are some big players, some big NIL players in this recruitment, and that's always something to be wary of. But I do think that Clemson is in a better position, from that standpoint than they were, just a couple of years ago. So, Tyler Atkinson, he's going to be acting up. Atkin up. What is his hashtag that he does? It's Atkin up. In Clemson, South Carolina on May 30th. Big development. And then the other name I wanted to mention, we've been talking about the defensive end recruiting and kind of the lack of juice, it seems there. You've had a couple of guys go elsewhere. Dre Quinn is still out on the board. We mentioned J.R. Hardrick last week as a guy that Clemson seems to be very high on, and he seems to be very high on Clemson. But another name, another big time blue chip name has come to light in Xavier Griffin Haynes, out towards your way, kind of sort of in Rollsville. You're kind of on the other side of Raleigh, but still closer to your part of North Carolina.
Sure.
He announced that he will be taking his official visit to Clemson, and I believe that Clemson is in a Final Four of Clemson, Nebraska. I'm blanking on the other two schools right now. Usually I would have this in my notes, but it is what it is. And so I think that Clemson has kind of surged in that recruitment when it seemed like they were kind of fading a few months ago, but now Clemson has secured that official visit weekend, that official visit from him, and I think he's a really great prospect, and that's why when it comes to recruiting and when it comes to Clemson, even when things seem slow and when things don't have a lot of juice, staff, trust the staff sometimes. Like I think that's the motto that should be the kind of takeaways, that you got to let things play out, because you never really know. It's like, oh man, is Chris Rumpf asleep at the wheel? No, he's out there recruiting. And so two big, massive announcements this week, and what's already going to be a pretty star-studded official visit weekend for Clemson. Those two, obviously, the big names, because we're in at the two positions that we've been keeping the biggest eye on the defensive side of the ball. So Tyler Atkinson, Xavier Griffin Haynes will be in Clemson on May 30th.
Absolutely. Tons of recruiting news coming out. It's going to be exciting. We're almost to the official visit weekend, which is kind of like, that bright light we've been staring at for the better part of a month now, and talking about and reviewing the list of recruits that are going to be there, and all of the excitement that's going to go in and around that official visit weekend. And again, like you mentioned, you never know what's going to happen on that official visit weekend. Crazy things happen. It tends to be good things for the Tigers in most cases, but you just never know. Super happy with the list of guys that are going to be coming. I think it's going to be great. It's nice to have guys that you already have commitments from there, just to kind of nudge those guys along a little bit and, give them stuff to think about when it comes to committing to the Tigers. But I'm certainly excited and looking forward to the official visit weekend and all the news that will inevitably follow that weekend. But we'll go ahead and leave recruiting there for now.